Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and The Daily Critique. Today's image was created by Greg, who's an intermediate photographer from Pennsylvania. Greg says that this image was taken in Times Square. He was on a family trip and he was trying to fit in some photography in the middle of doing some family activities. He was pushing his 2-year-old daughter in a stroller, and he started to think about what the city might look like from his daughter's vantage point. He says he took this shot from a crosswalk simply by walking to the middle of the street and setting his camera on the ground, tilting it up slightly and firing off shots without looking through the camera. He said he went back and forth several times using the LCD monitor on the back of his camera to sort of modify his position based off of what he saw on the shot before. Came up with a shot this super wide effective focal length of around 16 millimeters and shot at an aperture of f4.6. And we originally saw this image in Washington, D.C. on the Mindful Eyes Inspirational Photography Weekend, and I asked Greg to share it with us on Daily Critique, and he was kind enough to do that. So today this is just an image where I want to talk about several different things that I like that I think could really help you with your photography. So it's not so much of a critique of the image as it is just enjoying some things about this image that I think work really well. One of them is, the dominant idea in Greg's backstory, which is the idea of radical camera position, putting the camera in a place that's extraordinary. And one of the things I love about this image is, having been to Times Square many times, I've never seen it from this vantage point because I've never walked out into the middle of Times Square and laid down in the middle of the street. There's so much energy there, and to be there in the middle of the street is just amazing to me as the viewer of the image. I just can't overemphasize the power of seeing something that you want to photograph and then thinking about 4 basic camera positions that are different than just standing there and shooting from chest level. Low to high could be one of them, which is what Greg has done here, extremely low to high. And one of the things I love about the way he's done this is just setting the camera down on the ground and being willing to shoot without looking through the camera. Very, very powerful concept on 2 different levels. One, it puts the camera in a place where you're not going to be able to be, even if you laid down, you wouldn't be able to get the camera that low. You would still need to pick it up just a little bit to look through it. And the other thing is by setting it there and generally knowing the direction that you want to shoot but not looking through, you cut your left brain off and you may come up with a composition that's a little bit subtly different than what you would normally do by shooting without looking through, looking on the LCD, making a little bit of an adjustment. It's a completely different process than trying to compose this looking through the camera. So low to high, very high to low, another powerful camera position, and then the idea of just shooting low and shooting things that are very low with a very wide angle lens here. We're getting a sense of sort of low to low on the street, but also low to high because the angle of view is so wide here. So we're really sort of covering both of those, low to high and just very low, and shooting things that are low. And then the other one is close, and Greg also has that aspect of radical camera position here because the camera is sitting on the ground shooting super wide. We're not only very low, we're very, very close to the roadbed, and that has a big impact potentially on the viewer. The other thing I love about this image is just the idea of having your camera with you and getting out of this mindset that there's sort of this type of time and then there's photography time and there's another type of time. This is just a great example of integrating the different things that are happening in your life in a very powerful way. And it's a hallmark of very creative people. That is integration and synergy. You'll see people chopping out and separating and saying this is better than that. Those kinds of things, creating separations, making real extreme judgments, chopping everything into different pieces, tends to be a lot less creative than the idea of being able to integrate things that may be very different, and just at that basic level of just integrating the different parts of your life. And saying that photography is something that you could do all the time or any time. So many people would say, well, I've got to shoot this shot of Times Square from the tripod, or I'd never shoot without looking through the camera. And they'll set up all these limits that will limit output, it'll limit productivity. It'll also just limit the number of ideas that you're willing to work with. The other thing I absolutely love about this image, and it's something that I talk about a lot, but I really wanted to just take one image and really try and drive the point home. That is how clean the color is in this image. And it's a fun image to look at relative to clean color, because Greg has subject right in the foreground that is very easy to look at and say, we could go for a white point here and go for a gray point in here. And Greg has subjects in the image that are very color neutral, and then he has a lot of color in addition to that, and it really makes the color that is there come forward. The colors are separating. There's very little sense of a color cast. And I just want to make another point. This is a technical point. If we go into the raw converter and we just check what I'm saying. Let's say we want to set a gray point in here somewhere, and we click. The reason nothing has happened when we do that, I'll back up a state and click again, and almost nothing happens, is because this image from a white balance standpoint has been balanced very, very beautifully relative to areas that could be gray. And one of the things that I do so much of the time when I'm working on images is I use the raw converter to work with color in this way. A lot of times I will convert multiple images out of the raw converter, and one of them will be an image where I'll find something that's gray in the image and set that to an absolute gray point in the raw converter with the white balance eyedropper tool, and have that as a layer inside of my file, and maybe convert out a couple of other versions of the shot, maybe a warm and a cool version. And that will let me know that technically I have an area in the image that is true color neutral. It just also helps to get me away from color cast that can really start to rob the image of depth, where we start to have a cast that's an overlay on everything. The other thing that I really like about this image is just the moment. With this person over here is doing a gesture that's pretty radical, and it starts to, once you see her, at least in my mind, it starts to make me wonder what is going on over here. It makes the image even bigger than it is, and I love that mystery part of it. I also just love the simple archetype of her doing something that's facing the camera and this person walking away. And I love this particular spot in Times Square, just in terms of the framing. A real sort of formally symmetrical kind of shot. Definitely in the bottom of the shot with the road has just been symmetrically composed. But you get a sense of that in the top part of the image. And I love the way the flag comes in and breaks up this negative space. Real powerful archetype. Obviously, it could drive all kinds of feelings all the way across the board. Another real important subject in the image, but I just love the way the flag is in that negative space. And I love the way that, because it's high contrast and it's a single idea, that this part of the image can balance all of this movement of text and contrast and color and other archetypes that are very powerful. Just really like this image that Greg has been generous enough to share with us. And just, I talked about a lot of things, but we could just come back to two very simple things that you could think about in your photography if you're wanting to go beyond what's there and not just document. Radical camera position and managing color in a way where you have a visual sea level somewhere in the image, and you work to get colors to separate so that each color has its own space and has its own weight, and just create a very, very powerful feeling of multiple dimensions in your pictures. I want to say a big thank you to all the people that participated in our Washington, D.C. weekend. Would love to see you coming up in either Austin, Phoenix, or Nashville, and hope to see you again real soon on The Mindful Eye.